There is evidence the Great Pyramids were constructed over 12,000 years ago. Evidence that has been hidden for thousands of years in the scrolls of the Khufu caves. Evidence that has been corroborated by carbon dating and geological records. 4 of these scrolls, Isaiah, Job, Enoch, and Noah, places the Great Pyramid construction at a time when Golaris was a seasonal star of early summer, not a pole star as it is today. Golaris only becomes a seasonal star when the progressions of the equinoxes moves that start below the northern horizon circle. That only happens to Golaris once every 26,000 years and then only for a few years. And the last time Golaris was under the northern horizon circle was 12,000 to 13,000 years ago, a time that matches the astronomer Robert Bouvier's alignment of 3 Great Pyramids with the 3 stars of the Orion Belt. Bouvier determined that the 3 Great Pyramids have the same relationship in size ratio and placement as the 3 stars in the belt of Orion as they were seen from Egypt, 12,450 years ago. Even the original colors of those pyramids match Orion's stars, white, red and white. These pieces of seemingly unlikely evidence from those scrolls have been rejected by the scholarly world. Nevertheless, the Master of Time has hidden those pieces, evidence in those scrolls left there to be uncovered. Evidence, which is corroborated by the geological records of the Nile River Valley. Geological records show the Nile River level rising by hundreds of feet during that time, during a period of worldwide drought. The river level rise that has no natural reason to rise. Nevertheless, we must first deal with Khufu. The name Khufu meant in the ancient Semitic tongue, to cover up, and in Greek, Keops means the well-watered garden. Tradition says Khufu built the Great Pyramid and controlled the annual flooding of the Nile River. Now how did he do his amazing feats of engineering, like controlling the flooding of the Nile? The same way the Egyptians controlled the river now, with an irrigation dam. As Sherlock Holmes would say, the game is afoot. The problem with the Nile is that the river is in flood or drought. That is one of the reasons that the Aswan Dam and Lake Nasser were built, to regulate the flow of the Nile. Job explains the building of the pyramids, quote, "He shoots forth his power against the rock. He overturns the mountains from their foundation. Therefore, he used the stones from the top of his quarry for the bottom of his new mountain, his pyramid. He cuts the stone because of the river perceiving the future and the good that will come. He dams the river that it may not overflow," unquote. This passage speaks of the benefits of the dam. The dam was the device that controlled the annual flooding and drought cycle of the Nile. Job continued his explanation, and the thing that is hid under the irrigation water of the rising lake, so that he might bring forth the pyramid, but where is wisdom to be found? No man knows the treasures thereof, and where is the place of understanding? Unquote. When the Caliph al-Ma'mun in the year 840 of the Christian era broke into the pyramid, he did not find jewels, gold, or even mummies to be crushed and be sold for medicine. What he did find was bat droppings, lots of remnants of tiny water creatures, and tons of dirt. The Caliph and his minions took months digging the dirt from Great Pyramid. The dirt had seeped in through centuries of sitting in that lake, the seed of none. Flides Petrie, professor of Egyptology, the father of modern archaeological methods. Petrie made extensive measurements of the Great Pyramid, especially in the Queen's Chamber, where he had to spend much time cleaning away salt deposits that were caked on the wall of that chamber so he could make accurate measurements. The salt that was left behind after the brackish water had evaporated. However, the Queen's Chamber was high above the valley floor, evidence that the pyramid had once been underwater. The hieroglyphic symbol for Isis implies the Great Dam concept. The first glyph is an oval symbolizing the body of water. Above that is a half circle symbolizing rising. Then to the left a stair-step triangle, the dam symbol. The meaning: Isis, the great dam that causes water to rise. The dam icon was very commonly used in the past, though it has been misunderstood for centuries. Many times the scholarly have misunderstood the symbols used to portray the dam concept, leading many experts into error. The most glaring are the Syrinx of the Old Kingdom, all of which are connected to the Great Dam of Egypt. The earliest Egyptian name for their land was Kmt, now written Kmf. The hieroglyphic symbol reads bottom right to left, story, rise, 2, secrets, Horus or Pharaoh, and the Great Dam. We have been given a ball of thread to follow to unravel the mystery of how a Bronze Age society was able to erect two great pyramids more than 447 feet high. Herodotus said the pyramid was 20 years in the building and the machines to lift the stone were made of wood. Unquote. 20 years to stack 2.3 million blocks, which had an average weight of 5,000 pounds, average thickness 3 feet, stacked to a height of more than 450 feet. The machines to stack the stones were made of wood. Machines are translated from the Greek word machana, which can mean wooden barges. Any common Greek lexicon will say that machani is defined as machine. But surprisingly, if you look at similarly spelled Greek words, you will find they are defined as ship captains and seamen. Furthermore, if boats are not machines, what are they? Crocodiles. Strangely, yes, those machanas were sometimes shown as crocodiles in Egyptian sculptures. Horus, in the form of Herupod Aa, his depiction where young Horus is standing on the back of crocodiles. That name is defined from ancient Coptic Greek, Hebrew the tool of strengths. Pod, the narrows of the Nile. Kert meant earth for stone moving. These barges when transporting numerous stone blocks would look like crocodiles on the river when looked on from the lip of the valley. Mer-er was the first pharaoh of the first Egyptian dynasty. His Syrinx illustrates the narrows near modern Cairo with the island routed and the Nile passing on each side of the island. The second pharaoh was Aha, and his Syrinx shows the creation of the Great Dam, and Egypt nickname became Rahab the Wall. The pharaoh hawk glyph is holding the mirrored hand stone, which implies that Aha was doing the stone quarrying for the Great Dam. The third pharaoh was Djeber, seemed to be doing the construction of the dam and installing the floodgates of the Great Dam. Jet, the fourth pharaoh, completed the Great Dam project and officially divided the upper and lower states of Egypt, a project that brought great prosperity to the land of Egypt. Lower Egypt's glyph is the red crown with an ostrich feather, a glyph symbolizing the dam and the water cascading over causing the mist to rise, and half circled with cross-hatching symbolizing the masonry dam filling the narrows. Upper Egypt is symbolized by the kite glyph, interpreted to symbolize the speed of shipping on the Sea of Nun. The second glyph of Upper Egypt also has the Great Dam symbol below it. The main image is the Great Dam, symbolized in three ways. First, the wall with water heaped up over the top. Second, the stylized wall. And thirdly, the wall Syrinx with a snake zigzagging to symbolize the water cascading over the stair-step dam, with the pharaoh glyph the hawk. Above, the Great Dam gave additional benefits to the pyramid builders because as the dam grew higher, the stone masons working on the pyramid had stone delivered to their construction site because of the Queen of Navigation Isis. The Great Dam, as the water covered the stone blocks of the pyramid, the water would also cocoon the outside of the Osiris pyramid with green algae and black slime, the same colors that Isis used in the Osiris story. The wrappings then weathered away to white after the Great Pyramid rose out of the water of the receding lake in 2141 BC. Seancatho's the season of chaos. This masonry dam was built with rock and was reinforced with limestone blocks to last 8,000 years until the earthquake in Isaiah and his story of 2141 years before the Christian era began. Isaiah 19:5. And the waters shall fail from the sea of Egypt, and the river Nile shall be wasted and dried up. 6. And they shall turn the rivers far away, changing the courses of the Delta River channels to new locations, and the streams of defense shall be emptied and dried up. The reeds and iris flower shall wither. 7. The paper reeds by the irrigation water courses, and everything sown by the streams shall wither and be driven away and be no more. 8. The fish also shall mourn, and they that cast angle into the streams shall lament, and they that spread nets upon the sea of Egypt shall languish. This is a quote from an ancient Coptic text that was transcribed from a Hebrew text which was written 8th century BC by a man named Isaiah. The later Egyptian writer/historian mirrors this 19th chapter of Isaiah, by whose name was Mano, of the 3rd century BC. In his description is of the first intermediate period of Egyptian history. The description in this chapter of Isaiah is not of a future event but an event of the past 1,300 years before Isaiah's birth, a commentary on the flood of Egypt and aftermath caused by the destruction of the great dam across the Nile, causing the Sisyphos, the season of chaos of Egypt's history. Now here is the point in verses number 19 and 20. 19 On that day there shall be an altar to the Lord in the midst of the land of Egypt, and a pillar at its border to the Lord. 20 And it shall be a sign and for a witness to the Lord of hosts in the land of Egypt. However, we will need to decode those statements a little first. The location in the midland of Egypt. Okay, that means the middle of ancient Egypt. Next, at its border there of that statement does not mean at the outside edge of Egypt, but to the location where the two ancient Egypt's upper and lower meets. And where is that? Just up the river from Cairo. What is a pillar? That is a tall rock or a staff of rocks. What is an altar? It is a place to meet with God. Verse 18. In that day shall 5 cities in the land of Egypt speak the language of Hebrew, and swear to the Lord of hosts. One shall be called the city of destruction, Heliotropolis. Now here is the answer to this dark saying that locks these passages to the Great Pyramid in the verses 19-20. The Hebrew scholars use line ciphers to keep the transcriptions accurate. Well, the total of verses 19 to 20 is the total pyramid inches from the base to the platform of the Great Pyramid. Moreover, when did this altar or pillar come into view? Back to verse 5. And the waters shall fail from the sea of Egypt, and the river Nile shall be wasted and dried up. The sea which the ancient Egyptians called the Sea of Nun was also called the Sea of Egypt. Isaiah. The resurrection of the Great Pyramid as that structure rose out of the Sea of Egypt is expressed as symbols. First, the primeval mound, the first to burst forth from the waters of Nun. Next, the sacred Benben stone, and the bent new bird. The pyramid was also called Het Benben, the Temple of Benben, which is often called the Mansion of the Phoenix or Resurrection, as the rising from the waters of baptisms. Just like Osiris, the Egyptians also called the Great Pyramid at Heliopolis, Inu, the pillar, the first portion of land to have forced itself free of the sea Egypt. Adium, another name for the pyramid, spoke of itself, when I was alone in the waters, in a state of inertness, before I was bound anywhere to stand or sit. The book of Isaiah. The text implies that the destruction happened before the exodus of the Jews. Verse 18. In that day shall 5 cities in the land of Egypt speak the language of Hebrews, and swear to the Lord of hosts. One shall be called the city of Heliotropolis. This evidence is in line with the end of the Old Kingdom and the beginning of the first intermediary period, but sometime after the patriarch Joseph's arrival. The Ebook papyrus that was translated by Sir Alan Gardner in 1916, and was also known as the Admonition of an Egyptian Sage, and that document has a 500-year adjustment in the accepted timeline of Egypt's history. A document that speaks of the exodus of the Israelites from Egypt at the close of the Middle Kingdom that began the second intermediate period. This is a major adjustment to the common understanding of those timelines, and the first intermediate period. This moved to Thutmose III from Antiquities Book 2 Chapter 15 line 2 and his misplaced Sirach the first intermediate period, where we find Thutmose III is active at clearing an obstruction from the Nile. With that and the subtraction of around 400 years and the lifetime of one man named Joseph, this text would put the destruction of the Great Dam in line with the book of Isaiah timeline of his 19th chapter and indicated the conditions accompany famine. And Thutmose III proclaimed that the eye of the planet Mercury was in the sky. This is an anchor point in the history of Egypt to the stars.